Hi everybody, Hambone here. Some of you may know me for my time as teen heartthrob Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Others may know me for my internet fame. But most of you know me as a wildly successful open mic comedian.
And we're going to kick off the show, guy from Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Ooh, how'd you get this guy, Brian? I know, I got connections. Please welcome to the stage, Andrew Hamilton.
One thing we can all agree on is that I am a prolific shitter. That's right. I've left piles that would make a horse jealous. And thanks to a strict diet of fried food and IPAs, it typically comes out with the consistency of muddy tree roots. Over the years, I've ruined countless pairs of underwear, and I had all but given up hope. Until now. Thanks to Luxe Bidet. Just as functional as an electric toilet seat, Luxe Bidet is a non-electric bidet attachment here to prove that you don't need to break the bank to get a better toilet experience. Simply place the bidet under your toilet seat and connect it to your water supply. The Neo 320 offers a variety of features such as a self-cleaning nozzle, temperature control, water pressure control, dual nozzles for both regular and feminine wash, a patented sleek design, and a movable guard gate. These features will truly level up your bathroom experience without any compromise. The sleek and sophisticated design of the control panel includes a lever for temperature control and water pressure control that makes it feel like you're operating a spaceship while you poop. Or a spaceship, if you will. So go ahead and click the link above and browse the entire line of Neo bidet attachments to truly upgrade your pooping experience. Luxe Bidet. Become a bidet person.
We spoke of distrust.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Human Interaction Podcast. I am your host, Andrew Hambone Hambleton, and today I have with me a fellow stand-up comedian. He's a fellow podcaster. He's got two specials out, one on Amazon, Good Grief, How to Deal with, and Loss and Being Bad at It. That's the full subtitle.
It's a long, bad title.
It's not as long as some of the ones that you pitched, so...
Correct.
I just watched it recently when I asked you to be on here because I just wanted to be familiar with some of your work. It's usually good to do when you have a guest on your podcast, is at least know a little bit about something that they did. I really enjoyed it, so I want to talk a little bit about that today, and
of course.
And then we'll talk about your upcoming special.
Yes,
I didn't even, ladies and gentlemen at home, viewers, listeners, Glenn Tickle.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, that's his real name.
Correct. Well, that's my first album was called Yes Really, and that's exactly why. Because it's almost every time I meet somebody, the question I am asked if it is my real name, even before I did comedy.
Yeah,
just because it feels so on the nose for the career that I've pursued. Right. But it's just ridiculous. Like I could have been a carpenter and people would still think it was made up.
Yeah. Well, and you were a preschool teacher, right? Before comedy?
Well, I was a substitute teacher, so I worked with all grades, but I had a long-term subbing job as a preschool science teacher.
Yeah, and that's the basis for one of your jokes on your first album. If I remember correct, because that's right about the time that I actually met you for the first time. I think you came to the Lizard Lounge.
Yeah,
and
it was around then.
Yeah, you either had just released it or it was coming out.
And I think I might have actually. I've only been to the Lizard Lounge a couple of times, and I know one of the times was like literally the day I went to pick the album up from disc makers in South Jersey.
Okay.
I had 200 copies or whatever of them in my car, and then I drove out. I was supposed to do something with Lemaire, I think. Lemaire Lee, and then I just ended up going to the burrito place and that has the Dr. Mario arcade machine
in Lancaster.
Yeah, I forget the name of it.
That would probably be Robberitos.
Yes, I think that's correct.
It's like a block away from the Lizard Lounge.
Yeah. They kept asking me if I wanted anything to eat, and I didn't. I just wanted to play Dr. Mario.
Oh, and that's kind of your secret skill. Not really a secret, but you play in like Dr. Mario tournaments.
Yeah, I was in the World Championship over the summer, which they did. They normally do it in Pittsburgh, but they did it remotely because of the pandemic.
Nice.
So I'd planned. I didn't know it was a thing, but I started going for the record in Dr. Mario in 2016, and then I found out about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we do it in Pittsburgh." I'm like, "That's not that far. Like that's
no, it's really not.
6-hour drive. That's doable." So I planned on making the trip out this year, but then pandemic, and they didn't do it. But we did it on the Nintendo Switch, which was not ideal because Nintendo is famously bad at any kind of online play.
Right.
But it was a lot of fun. I didn't win. I was officially a finalist because I lost in the second round, but there was a loser bracket, and I won that because I beat all the other losers. And then I had the chance to like fight my way back into the tournament, but lost in what was probably the closest Dr. Mario match of my career. It was a lot of fun.
I've only played Dr. Mario a couple times because I'm terrible. I was terrible.
A very good game.
It's simple. I mean, I'm
it's
terrible
for whatever
at Tetris
reason.
too.
It's a thing I'm very good at.
Yeah.
Like I'm okay at Tetris. I'm not like competitive, but Tetris doesn't make sense to me. Like the goal is unclear. Like you're simultaneously building and destroying a tower. Like Dr. Mario, you're clearing viruses out of a jar. You have a clear end goal. Like there's levels. And the Tetris doesn't stop. It just keeps going until you lose. It doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't really beat Dr. Mario either, but you can beat the level that you're playing.
Right. So it keeps like there's infinite levels essentially.
It taps out. The most viruses you can have in a jar, I believe, is 84. Like it'll count up from level 20. That's where you get 84. It'll keep going depending on the version. The original NES one stops counting after 24, and you just play that level over and over again because it wasn't. There's other like bugs and stuff in the game where it seems like they didn't design it with the goal of people playing it very seriously. Like if you score too high, it breaks the game. Essentially. Nice. Like there's a glitch where the more combinations you make, the higher score you get. But if at a certain point the game's like, I don't know, man. I can't do that math.
Well, I mean, what the NES cartridges have like a few kilobytes of like memory in them, you know. I mean,
yeah, like it's why in Zelda you can only have 255 rupees.
Yeah.
Because after that, like the game can't remember 256.
Oh man, how far we've come. I was talking like I had the thought. I wasn't talking to my dad about it, but I had the thought because he made a comment. You know, he's a boomer, so he was getting frustrated because the world's changing around him, and he voiced that specifically. And my thought was like, dude, the world's constantly changing around everybody. You know, like the in the time that I've been alive, and we're similar age, I assume. I grew up with floppy disks, and now it's like you don't need. I have like external hard drives. I don't even have a hard drive in my computer. You know, like it's just crazy to think how far technology has come in such a short time. And
I mean, historically there have been times where there've been bigger jumps than others, but it's not. It's the world's always changing for everybody.
Yeah, it's all about adaptation and survival.
Take that, Andrew's dad.
Yeah, who I'm going to hang out with as soon as we finish recording this. So back to your first album is called Yes Really.
Yes.
And it's 2016 is when you released it.
Yeah.
And I'm actually the proud owner of the album on Bandcamp.
Delightful. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and again, like we met when I had like just started doing comedy essentially. So anytime someone's like, yeah, I have an album out, you can like any of the people who would come to open mics, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna like support comedy. Now I'm like, yeah, whatever.
I try to do the same thing, but I mean, now I forget the context. I was talking to somebody about this, but I'm like, yeah, most of the people I know are comedians, and I've been doing it for 11 years. So like a lot of the comedians that I know have albums. Like when you're starting out, like the first couple of years, when one of your friends puts an album out, you're like, oh, this is incredible. But then when you're a decade in, and most of the other comedians, you know, have an album or a special or something out. And yeah, I don't know, I would go broke if I bought everybody I know's album.
Right.
I try. I'll listen to it on like Spotify and get them a few cents.
Yeah. Add to the add to that play count.
If it's somebody's first thing, I will usually buy the thing.
That's good. Support them a little bit, encourage them. Because I was thinking about this last night actually, because I kind of had a little bit of a spiral last night. They like comedians don't get a lot of encouragement even from their friends.
No.
You know, it's a very it's a very we're gonna talk shit on each other instead of actually being like supportive, unless you're in the improv scene, I guess.
Oh yeah, improvisers are very supportive of one another. I've always been jealous of that aspect of it.
Yeah, but also like, and I think that's the real divide between like improv and stand up. You know, there's that like feud between the two sects of comedy.
Mhm.
And I think that's really what it is. Like stand up comedians don't get encouragement like that. Like their peers are not supportive. It's always a like, no, you suck kind of thing. And improvisers are like the happiest, cheeriest people ever, and it disgusts us. It is
Well, it's weird because I'm
disgusting to
friends
us.
with a lot of improvisers, but they'll try to get me to do it, and I'm so uncomfortable when I don't know what I'm saying on stage that it has no appeal. Like I had to do it a couple times in college for like acting classes and stuff.
Mhm.
I hated it, but that and like singing publicly I absolutely don't want to do either of those things. But then I will also like, I have no problem standing on stage in front of people. Like that's my whole job. It's
Right.
just I want to know what I'm there to do.
Yeah, and I understand that completely. I think that's part of like I used to, even for open mic sets, I would write it out like a speech. You know, I would do like an outline of my 5 minutes. And over the past couple of years, I have not been doing that. I've just been kind of going on
started
stage and
doing
riffing.
that too.
Yeah,
Like writing things more word for word. Because especially when you're starting out and like you're only getting 5 minutes at an open mic, like you really want to optimize that time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because where I am in New Jersey, like there's really nothing around me, so I go to the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania to perform more often than anywhere else. When I started, you could find an open mic on a rare occasion. You could find 2 a night within like a reasonable drive, but that's not even the case anymore. Like if there's 1 or 2 a week, that's busy around here.
Yeah, I mean, same in Lancaster.
Yeah. So it's not like you can go. If you go to Manhattan, you can do 5 or 6 open mics a night, any night of the week, and like really work things out quickly. But you know, out where we are, you get, you know, maybe 5 minutes a week, and it's not a lot of time.
Yeah,
so really figuring out exactly what you're going to say, I think is beneficial.
Yeah, well, and for a little while, for I don't know, a year and a half maybe, I was driving down to Philly every night after work to hit mics, because for a good stretch there, they had, you know, 2-3 mics a night that you could hit most nights of the week. So it was beneficial to be able to do that, but man, it takes a toll on you.
Yeah, I didn't get to Philly a lot because where I am, it takes me as long to drive there as Manhattan, and I'm like, I might as well just go to like 2 or 3 shows a night or 6. Like it's easy.
Yeah.
Decision to make. If I had like a show or something that I was booked on in Philly, I would go. I mean, I've been to Philadelphia. Like I have friends who live there. Sometimes I just go, but
right.
If it's to do open mics, I'd rather drive into New York.
Yeah, well, and I mean, New York's the mecca, so why wouldn't, if you have the opportunity to go there, why wouldn't you? For
Yeah, like
comedy
it takes as long to get there as Philly. It's comparable cost for like parking and stuff.
Oh, really? I wouldn't think that. I would think New York.
It depends where you go, like in time of day. Like you
Yeah,
can park on the
okay.
street for free on Sunday in a lot of places, but I don't know. It's been a while since I've been in there because of the pandemic, and then I do a lot of college shows, so like I'm touring more than I'm hanging out at home doing open mics. But this past year, I've just been home.
Yeah. Well, everybody has. Comedy
Yeah.
really doesn't exist right now, especially because it's getting cold. The only place you could probably really get on like an outdoor show would be the West Coast, Southwest US
I remember at the
Florida.
beginning, I have friends in LA who were like, "Oh, we're not even bothering with outdoor shows out here." I'm like, "Right, well, we're trying to get them in now because it's going to get cold in 2 months and we're not going to be able to. Like,
Yeah.
you guys can just decide kind of whenever." But I got asked to do an outdoor show for last week. I'm like, "No, absolutely not. What are you talking about? It's 12 degrees outside."
Yeah. Have you done any Zoom shows or anything like that?
Yes. They are weird. The ones that I've done where it's like I've done a lot of podcasts over Zoom, and I would rather do this than perform stand-up comedy.
Oh, absolutely. Even this is kind of weird. Like this is,
I mean, it's taken some getting used to, but
this is absolutely not what I want this podcast to be.
I think when we were talking about it originally, like I was trying to find a time when I was going to be out your way or when you were in the Valley or something, and we were going to meet up. But then pandemic.
That was when I was doing audio only, because I had like a whole mobile setup, like recording. It was like a pocket studio essentially where I could mix and master tracks and everything like right there. And I have dreams of turning my guest bedroom into a little studio and maybe being able to make this like a little more professional. But I've been unemployed since last February, and money doesn't grow on trees, as they say.
Yeah.
So, but that's still in the plans. There's a lot of stuff in the plans. Once I'm almost there. I'm in like the final stages of job interview and hiring process for a new job.
Good.
So hopefully I'll be able to make this into something a little better.
I heard from my college agent this week that colleges are starting to look at booking things later in the year in person again, but there's still a few of them are still booking Zoom shows, which I'm not. I'll do them. Like colleges pay well, but the Zoom shows that I've done, if it's like a longer set than like 10 minutes, it just feels brutal.
Yeah, because it's you don't have the energy of the crowd of the audience. Like if
there might be like a couple people who are unmuted, but like their laughs are delayed, so you don't know if like did the joke not work or is my internet connection bad. The last college show I did, they didn't want to do it over Zoom. They just wanted me to broadcast it over YouTube. So I had no feedback whatsoever. It was literally just me talking at my laptop silently for an hour. And I'm
so it's essentially a podcast, like doing a Zoom show.
Yeah, it was like because I did like college radio when I was in college, and it's that like you're just in a room talking. You have no idea if anyone's listening or how they are reacting, and it is. For 5 minutes, fine. But when I have to do it for an hour for a college show, it's insane. And I have another one next month that is a similar size. I think I will have like half a dozen students in like a separate call just to like have people reacting. That I don't think that's finalized yet.
Okay. So the college tour, like how is that? Or the college circuit, I should say. Like you're not an offensive comedian by any standard.
No,
really.
I mean I was really hesitant for a long time to describe myself as a clean comedian because I feel like it's got a weird connotation. And it's mostly just, I don't know, like when I started doing jokes about my kid after she was born, it felt weird to go from like cute joke about my baby into like a dirty joke.
Right.
And then I
right.
started booking college shows. I'm like, well, if most colleges want me to work clean, I don't want to write 2 sets. Like I'm incredibly lazy. So I'm just going to write, if it's not a joke I can do on any show that I get booked at, what's the point of writing it? There have been a couple that I just like thought of, and if it's terribly dirty, I'll like text a friend. I'll be like, this is very funny, but I'm never going to do it on stage. So
Right. That's what I do with like Twitter. Because no one like pays attention to me on that.
Oh yeah, like I
social
swear and
network
stuff
stuff.
on Twitter.
Yeah.
Well, I will occasionally get people responding to them, be like, I thought you were a clean comedian. I'm like, oh, on stage, I'm clean.
Yeah.
I try to make sure that everyone, because I'm not at a point where people are really coming to see me specifically. So I still look at it as like, if I get booked on a show, it is essentially like I am being asked to be there, and I want everyone to have, excuse me, I want everyone to have a nice time. Like I'm a political person. I'm not a political comedian, mainly because like it's been tough to get comedy out of it for the past couple of years. But also like if I get asked to do a show at a firehouse in the middle of Pennsylvania, I'm like, those people just want to have a nice night out. Like,
right.
They've essentially invited me there. I'm not just going to show up and yell at them for being idiots. Like that's then who is that fun for? Like,
right.
if it gets to a point where people are coming to see me specifically, like that's how I look at Twitter. I'm like, look, you followed me. I'll say whatever I want on here. If you don't like it, you're more than welcome to not follow me. But I just feel like I'm still at the point in comedy where I feel like an invited guest more than anything when I'm on stage. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to show up and be rude. Like,
right. Well,
but online, people are finding me specifically. So yeah, like I'll say whatever I want.
Yeah, and there is a certain amount of talent and skill that goes into, especially like from my point of view, because I have a very dirty mouth. Like 4-letter words just kind of come out in as like vocal tics for me. So that's something I've tried to work on, because I think it stops me from getting, but aside from the material being depressing and dirty, I think that stops me from getting booked a lot of times. Is just
it can. I mean, it depends on the circumstances. Like again, if I'm doing like a bar show somewhere, I will just do my regular jokes, but I will like casually swear in the middle of them because it just keeps people's attention when you swear every once in a while. And it's especially like, I hate doing bar shows. They're probably my least favorite kind of gig, because half the people that are there are not there to watch a show. They're there because they wanted to go to a bar that night, and you're
ambushing them
with comedy. Yeah. So there's nothing worse. If they have like a back room where the show is happening, like that's different. That like the open mic I used to host it at the Bethlehem Steel Sacks, or not Bethlehem Brewworks in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize you had hosted that mic at
like
one point.
a million years ago.
That's
the one I started at, and it's like in a separate, like smaller room somewhere. They have a couple.
Yeah, in the fishbowl is where.
Yeah, it was up in the fishbowl when I started, and now it's usually downstairs, which I don't like.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did move it downstairs for a little bit, and I got so confused when they were doing that, because I would show up and no one would be upstairs, but then no one would be downstairs either. And they like,
it's weird because it's a bigger room, which should be nice, but it's long and there's pool tables that they cover, thankfully, for the open mic, but people don't sit right up in front. They sit back. So it's a bigger room, but it absolutely feels like it because there's still only 15 people because it's an open mic, but they're also now half a room away from you, as opposed to the fishbowl. Like you get 15 people in that room. It feels great.
Right. And yeah, it's intimate, and I feel like that encourages people to react more and be a little more supportive as an audience member when
I love it when it's upstairs, and I dislike it when it's downstairs. But they also don't usually tell my friends Ian Webster and Roya Hamadani host it now. they usually don't tell them until they get there where it's going to be.
Right.
So like I can't plan on I'm like, oh well, if I knew the day before that it was going to be in the fishbowl, I would like plan on going.
Yeah.
But I also have small kids, so sometimes it's tough to get out for open mics anymore.
Yeah. A father of two.
Yeah.
And you
a
have
7-year-old and a 2-year-old. So
okay.
they're it's weird because I write so many jokes about them, but then they also prevent me from being able to go tell those jokes anywhere.
They've written jokes for you, which you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, I put that clip up of me doing the joke from the special. So I do a joke that I say my toddler wrote a joke. She spits water out of her mouth, which is a real thing that she does. She thinks it's hilarious, and it is. It's very funny.
Yeah.
But I do it, and I recorded it in Good Grief. I think we filmed in December 2019, and then I filmed it in the Dry Bar special that I have coming out in January 2020, like right before the pandemic. So I did this both. I did this joke on both specials where I spit water out of my mouth, and I can't imagine like when we go back to doing live shows, I'm like, well, I can't do that one anymore. Like, after there's been a global pandemic, the punchline can't be me spitting water out at the and I don't like stream it out at them. It just falls out of my mouth.
Right.
But we did 2 shows in Utah for the Dry Bar special. And the first show I did it, I was like right at the edge of the stage, and they put people right up against it, and there was like a splash zone, and I felt terrible.
It's like a Gallagher show.
Yeah, I don't think they used that take. They sent me a rough cut, and it doesn't look like anybody gets wet. I felt terrible. So then the second show, I like walked all the way back to the top of the stage so that nobody would get hit.
Awesome. Well, okay. So speaking of Good Grief, like I said, I watched it the other when I asked you to, when we worked all the details out for this.
Yeah.
I went and watched it because it is, if you have an Amazon Prime account, it is available to watch. It's included with your Prime account.
Yeah. People can get it from me. You can rent it for free through Circus Trapeze Records as well if people don't have Amazon.
That's right. You started your own comedy recording company.
Yeah. After I put my album out, I started a record label kind of by accident because I lied to Billboard when they asked what the name of my record label was, and I told them that it was Circus Trapeze Records, and then my album charted. So that week on the Billboard chart, it said Glenn Tickle, Yes Really, Circus Trapeze Records. And then like my friends were asking me about putting an album out, and when I did it, like I signed up for all these services and stuff to self-release, which is essentially what you do. Like as an album, you just do it for other people. So like Tyler Rothrock was asking me a bunch of questions, and I'm like, if you want, I can just do it for you. He's like, oh yeah, because I was telling him like, you got to fill out these spreadsheets. He's like, I don't want to do any of that. I don't blame you. It's my least favorite part. I'm like, but yeah, just I'll help you record it, and then I'll put it out, and just it'll be out on Circus Trapeze Records instead of you self-releasing it. He's like, perfect.
Yeah,
so
it looks better when you have a record company or a label.
I've heard that from people. Like I put Ricky Glores out at the beginning of 2020, and he was like, I didn't know him when he reached out initially, and I told him the same thing I tell most people who reach out to me about putting an album out on Circus Trapeze. I'm like, just do it yourself, like, because I wrote an article about self-releasing a comedy album, like that was literally like step for step how I did it, and encouraging people to also do it that way. Every couple months, somebody finds that article and they're like, hey, I want to put my album out on your record label. I'm like, read the article again, man. It's like, you don't need me.
Yeah.
But he was like really persistent. And he's like, I kept telling him, like, you know, it's not that I don't think you're funny. It's just, you don't need me to do this for you. And he's like, well, I'm doing a show in Pennsylvania in a couple weeks. Like, come out, like I'll headline you feature. And then we'll talk about it more then. And I'm like, all right. And like, he was really determined to do it. I'm like, well, if he's insistent on putting it out on a record label, like, he's funny. I would like it to be my record label, but I still think he could have just done it himself. He's like, no, like, he's like, having somebody behind it, like, means something to me. Is essentially
Right.
what he told me.
Oh, that's, I
I
mean,
mean, yeah, I'm like, I don't want you to think I don't think you're funny and that I don't believe in you, but you're like, the portion of the money that I'm taking could absolutely just still be yours.
well, and you know, that's when I started comedy, that was my goal, was to like self-produce an album, because
Yeah, it's
when
so
I
easy.
yeah, and
I mean,
when
it's hard. Like it's hard developing an hour of comedy material,
Absolutely.
but recording it and getting it on Spotify and stuff is a lot easier than I had thought when I did it.
See, I was I don't want to say spoiled. I think I was misled a little bit when I started, because there's a girl in Phoenixville who ran shows, and
Mm-hmm.
she would book me and not like give me any time limit or anything like that. So I was like, you know, 4 or 5 months into doing comedy, doing like 20-minute sets of maybe one good joke, you know,
Yeah,
and I thought I was like, oh, this is easy. I can write a 20, like I can talk for 20 minutes, half an hour easily, no problem.
yeah.
But is it all funny? No. And that's
That's
whole
the thing
point.
that I usually tell people when they're thinking about doing their first album. I'm like, having an hour of material and performing an hour for an album are different. Like, just because you have 60 minutes worth of jokes, like they need to kind of go together. Like, it doesn't have to be all on one topic. Or like Good Grief is a special thing where I
Mhm.
built it around the when my little brother died. I'm like, I have an hour of material about this one thing, but I'm like, it needs to make sense as a whole. You can't just perform like 6-10 minute sets and put them together. Like, it doesn't really work that way. And people have tried. I mean, and I could be wrong, like, but that's when I'm looking for albums to put out. I'm like, yeah, it should be like an hour, not just a bunch of jokes that last for 60 minutes.
Right. So back to Good Grief.
Yeah.
So having watched it recently, it was actually a great time for me to watch that special, because one of my best friends passed at the end of 2020 in December, and he really was like a brother to me as well. I've known him for so long, and he's a huge part of my life. So it was just a very poignant special to watch at the time for me personally.
Yeah. Sorry to hear it. I mean, I've heard that from a lot of people who watch the special. And then I've also known people in my life where like I hear like, oh, they lost somebody close. And it's weird because I'll have the thought, I'm like, other people have told me that watching this special has helped them deal with loss. But I also don't want to be like, hey, I know your dad just died. Watch this comedy special.
Right.
Like, it feels so weird. It's been so hard to like promote. When I was touring the show, it was hard to sell. Just the idea of it, because I usually say, I'm like, oh, it's an hour of comedy about the death of my younger brother. It is funnier than that sounds.
Yeah. And it is a funny special. And that's, I mean, I like the way you point out that it's not, the title doesn't refer to you, a comedy about loss and being bad at it. It doesn't refer to you.
Yeah.
It refers to like society, like people in general.
Yeah.
Because,
I mean, a lot of the jokes aren't specifically about my brother. It's stuff like that people said to me after he died. It's probably about half the special of like, people mean well, but nobody really knows what to say. And like, I've dealt with this topic. Like it was almost 4 years after my brother died before I released the special. Like, it's a thing I thought a lot about, but like you just said, your friend died. I'm like, I don't know. Sorry, it sucks. I don't have like a good, I don't have a good thing to say.
Yeah, and I'm exactly the same. You know, people, it crushed me. I was devastated, and I cried for like 2 days straight. But then it's like, there's not this is like helping me emotionally, but it's not changing the fact that something terrible happened in my life, you know?
Yeah.
So there's a point where you just have to accept and move on. And
well, I felt guilty at first because I was doing all these jokes about my little brother dying. I mean, before I performed them, I was thinking of them and writing them down and then feeling bad. And then the more people that I talked to about it, like, they're like, oh yeah, no, like at my grandma's funeral, this hilarious thing happened. And like, I think it's more general of a response than I thought it was originally. Like, I think a lot of people use humor to deal with grief. And it was just, I hadn't lost a ton of people up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or even now, it's just my brother was the person I was closest to. In the special, I talk about, I think in the final version of the special, I only talk about 3 of my 4 grandparents dying. But there was a bit I did about my other grandfather where like the joke didn't work as well, and the special was getting a little long, so
you cut it out.
down. I think I put it up on YouTube on my channel.
That joke.
Yeah, because it's the first person I knew who died was my maternal grandfather, who I was really close to, and that was really hard. And I didn't have like a great joke about it, whereas the other 3, like, those jokes worked better for the special. So
yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I had a thought in my head and it left. It's gone. Great podcasting.
I mean, you could edit it around it.
I could. Oh, hey, thank you. That brings it. The way you edited the special was, I thought was very interesting. And I know you specified in the special, like, this isn't the thing you want to be known for. This was something you just kind of had to get out and then move on from it. Which again is it's dealing with grief. You know, you went through, and is that what the little segments kind of are? You used a lot of big words that I would have had to look up if I wanted to.
Yeah.
To
I had to look them
understand
all up too. I did a lot of research for like picking. I specifically wanted words that people wouldn't know. But that also like described that segment of the show. I don't remember most of them, to be honest. I know the one is like the Latin name for a ladybug, like that genus or species or whatever.
Okay.
Concilidae, I think it is. That one I remember. But yeah, they're from like different languages. Some of them aren't really used anymore. So a few of them were like specifically in like descriptions of things in publishing. Like we all know like prologue and epilogue, but they're like more obscure. Also like frequently included in books thing, like excursus was one. I think that's the one where I explain that I don't want this to be the thing that I am known for, and then I do a bunch of jokes about my kids.
Yes, yeah.
I did. I probably, I don't remember specifically when I decided to put those in, but it's almost certainly because of the movie Clerks.
Okay.
Which use title cards like that, scene to scene, because I don't know, big Kevin Smith fan.
Yeah. You reference, you make what you referred to as the nerdiest reference that you've ever made.
Oh yeah,
on stage.
I talk about him briefly. He was writing for the DC Comics character Green Arrow for a while, and in one of the issues, Superman and Hal Jordan, who he was Green Lantern, but at the time he was Spectre. Talk about how to bring Green Arrow back, they had to like, because Green Arrow, the character, died in a explosion on a plane, and so he was done. But I think Kevin Smith's run was like the reintroduction of this character.
Okay.
So they justified it as Superman, who we all know can do pretty much anything he wants, and Spectre, who was essentially God, had to find every molecule of this guy from the explosion and like put him back together.
Okay.
So I make a reference to Horcruxes.
Which
different people in my family got like parts of my brother's ashes and put them in like pendants or whatever. And I describe them as Horcruxes, which I know that's not what Horcruxes are, but it's close enough that like the joke works.
Oh yeah.
And anybody who's listening who is just thinking how boring that explanation of the Kevin Smith thing was, like that's what I meant, is this thing, but there's not like a short name for that. Like it's I went with the thing that people would understand, not like the actual the actual working comparison.
Right. Well, and I mean, that fits with your whole kind of your vibe on stage, because you are a self-described geek, right? You're not actually a nerd, you're a geek, and there's a difference.
There is a difference. It's weird because for a long time I hated the word geek. Like, I don't like the way it sounds. But for a while I was writing and then eventually ran a website called Geekosystem. So like when it starts showing up on your paychecks, you kind of soften up to it a little bit.
Right. But no dweebs. No dweebs allowed.
No dweebs.
Yeah.
That was I don't remember why I started the running bit because I frequently, like, as a working road comedian, I frequently need to drive very far.
Mm-hmm.
And like sometimes I do genuinely like just being alone in my car for a long time. And then other times, like, it would be nice to have someone else in this car with me.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have like a trip coming up, I will like post on Facebook. It was like, hey, is anybody around next week? I have to drive to Cleveland or whatever. And then I will put no dweebs because I think I did it initially because it's a word that's ultimately meaningless, but also like I think it weeds some people out from.
I've never asked to come with you.
Like, because I think somebody might see it and think like, does Glenn think I'm a dweeb? You know what? I'm not gonna post. And it's like I did a road trip with Sergio Marzatelli a couple years ago because I had a show in Easton, Pennsylvania one night, and then I had to be in Buffalo, New York at 6 a.m. the next morning. So like I had to drive overnight. And I'm like, I need somebody else in the car. I'm like, I will drive the whole time. I just need somebody else there to make sure I stay awake and stuff. So I did that post and he asked to come, and we had met a couple of times and done a few shows together, but like we weren't close, but nobody else was available. So I was like, all right, it felt like a risky move because I didn't know him that well. And it was a weekend of shows. Like I had to go from Easton to Buffalo to Rochester and home. So I'm like, I'm going to be with this dude for like 3 days. It was great. That's why I named him, because he did a good job.
Yeah, the dweebs don't get named.
Yeah, it felt risky. And then, but other times, like I'll go on shorter trips with people. I will just straight up lie to people too. If they're like, oh, do you still need somebody to go? I'll be like, no, I found somebody. Get out of here. I don't want them to feel bad.
Right.
Because like I do it on Facebook. Like the only people who see it are people who are at least Facebook friends with me. I don't just like open it up to the world at large.
Right.
That would be insane.
I mean,
for the most part, people that I'm friends with on Facebook are people that I would want to see in real life. It's not 100% true, but you know, largely.
Yeah. I mean, I have made the joke in the comments like, oh, you said no dweeb, sorry, I'm out. But really the only reason I never like volunteered is the same reason I don't book myself on shows that I produce, because like I want people to enjoy the show. So I don't.
I mean, it's good that you're self-aware, I guess.
I just know my style of comedy is not for everybody.
I had a couple people, like I've done shows with Madeline Smith before, and she was going to come open for me at a college gig. She lives on the other side of New Jersey from me and not in the direction I was going. And like the day before the show, she's like, I should have said something sooner. I do not have a car.
Oh, I see. And to like, backtrack and go get her.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, then in the nicest way I can word this, I'm not driving across the state to pick you up and then driving back across the state to go to Ohio or wherever. So I'll get you next time.
Right.
And it wasn't because like she's great. It's just I'm not adding ultimately 4 hours to my trip because I'd have to then drop her off on the way home. Yuck.
Yeah. No, I would do the same thing. Actually, I would not. I would go pick her up because I have no spine.
If she lived closer, like I'll go a little bit out of my way. But yeah, I don't know. It was just in 100% the opposite direction.
Oh yeah, yeah. So in addition to stand-up comedy and everything like that. You have a podcast, Improvised Wikipedia. Do you have more than one podcast, or is that pretty much?
I've had multiple podcasts over the years.
Okay.
That's the only one I'm currently working on.
It's
really, I host it with my friend John Unger, who he's one of the many improvisers that I know, and we'd done a few things together. He works at Steel Stacks, the venue I perform at a lot, and we'd known each other for a while, and we had decided at one point it would be fun to do something together. We're like, we have a lot of common interests and like talking to each other. So like one day we just got coffee and we're like, what should the thing we do together be? Like, instead of just hypothetically being like, oh yeah, someday it would be like, let's sit down and figure out what is the thing we do.
Mm-hmm.
And we settled pretty early on podcast. And I think we each came in and like pitched a few ideas, and we settled. I think Improvised Wikipedia was his idea, based off of like, I came in with this, I forget what it was, but it like involved a lot of research that we would both have to do before. And he's like, well, what if we do that but don't do any of the research? And
nice.
He's like, because that sounds like it would take up a lot of time, and I don't want to do that. But if we just did a version of that where we were stupid and didn't know anything, it would be fun. And pretty quickly settled on that as the idea. Because what it is we get, lately we've been having a lot of guests on. We'll have the guest tell us something they want to know more about, and then we will rewrite the Wikipedia page for that thing, but without doing any research. Like, we don't know what the topic is ahead of time. We used to, and we do sometimes still have, like, I'll put a post up on Facebook, like, tell us something you want to know about. And then people will leave comments, and then we don't look at it again until we record.
It's such a fun idea to me. Because I mean, it
is fun.
Yeah. It's the same kind of vein as like Drunk History or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
People explaining things in the wrong way, essentially. Like,
yeah, well, because one thing we didn't count on when we started was like, a lot of times it's something one or both of us actually know quite a bit about. I don't want to put John down, but I feel like it's usually me. But like, we had an episode on skyscrapers. I'm like, you know what? I actually know a lot about this. So like, we thought it would be, somebody suggested Ibogaine as a topic, and we're like, we don't even know if that's a real word. Like, we tried to break it down like syllable by syllable to fit. We're like, I think it's probably some kind of drug, and we just went from there. And it was, but we were way off. Like, we decided it was some kind of ointment for something, and it's a poisonous LSD. Powder. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. we were way off on that. We thought that's mostly what we would be working with.
Okay. Yeah, it's
a lot of times we at least know a little bit.
Those are some of my favorite podcasts out there right now, is like informative comedy podcasts. I don't know if if you know Chris Wood, Philly guy. He has the Oral Presentations podcast, and listening to him explain things and do research, it's hilarious, but he's also doing like a lot of work. So shout out
Chris Wood is involved in one of my favorite memories of Philadelphia. The night before the Eagles won the Super Bowl, he and I were on Lemaire Lee's show at
Good
the name of the show. It was at Good. I'm trying to remember the name
Feud?
of the show. Feud, yes.
Yeah, which he's doing that online. He's doing a virtual version of that now. But,
so basically the premise of the show is comedians come on and defend their bad opinions. So he's like, send me 3 of your bad opinions. I'll pick one to have you do on the show, and then we'll use another one to introduce you. So we're getting introduced. Chris gets introduced before me, and his bad opinion was that he didn't think Trump was doing that bad of a job. So that's how they introduce him. He walks out to let's say a mixed reaction from the audience. I get introduced. This next comedian thinks Sheetz is better than Wawa, and they booed me for 3 solid minutes, uninterrupted. And I was like, Yeah, but no, did you hear the thing
Yeah.
this guy thinks?
But
And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that it was pretty early on.
Yeah.
in
Well, and
his
that's
presidency.
also
I don't know.
the
I don't
whole,
know if he stands by that opinion.
yeah, that's also the point of the show is to come up with a bad opinion, maybe not one that you necessarily agree with, but
Yeah.
I can argue till my face turns blue, like it doesn't matter what I'm arguing about.
I think the one that I argued on the show was that NFL players deserve millions of dollars and teachers don't. And I mean, which is just, it's objectively true. Like,
yeah
teachers deserve to be paid more, absolutely, but like football players are exploited by people who are making billions of dollars off of them, so they absolutely deserve as much of that as possible. Like the public education system doesn't generate a ton of money. Like, that's where would those millions of dollars come from? They should be paid well, absolutely.
Yeah, but
I kept seeing the meme of like, whenever somebody signs like a big sports contract, the meme goes around of like, this guy's getting $200 million to play a game and teachers make this much. I'm like, yeah, no, but like, people are going to make billions of dollars off of that guy destroying his body for 5 years. Like,
right. It's kind of the inverse of what I see, the memes I see in argument against a $15 minimum wage. So like, you want to make a McDonald's employee earn $33,000 a year while
yes,
a teacher owns like 30 or earns like 36. It's like, well, the point is that teachers should probably be paid more than they are right now.
Yeah, people who post stuff like that, I'm like, God, you're so close to getting it, bud. Like,
right? Yeah,
yes.
Just
some kid's gonna make $15. Yes, some kid is gonna make $15 an hour, and then you should also make more. You're correct.
Yeah, and maybe the people at the very top don't really deserve to make as much money as they do.
We should fire all billionaires into the sun.
Yeah,
like, that's
and that's what I'm so depressed right now, because I missed out on all of this retail trading, like the short selling. I think it's amazing, and I think it's amazing that it started with GameStop too, no less,
right?
Because they are, and gamers protecting GameStop, because the whole point is that we all hate GameStop because they just rip you off of everything. Like, here, I paid $60 for this game a week ago. Yeah, we'll give you $1.50 for it. But yeah, that was it's an amazing time to be alive. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get into crypto because people have been telling me forever to do it. And
when I was at Ecosystem, it was when Bitcoin had been around for a bit, but it was when it was just starting to like be a thing that most people knew about.
Mm-hmm.
And I pitched the story. I'm like, hey, as a company, we should just buy $100 worth of Bitcoin and do periodic updates with how that's going. Bitcoin at the time was less than $10. And now, like, that would have funded the company for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
If they had just listened to me. And they're like, no, we don't think it's not going to be around long enough to be worth covering.
Well,
you dumb idiot.
Yeah. The only thing I ever knew Bitcoin was like good for was like buying illegal things on the internet. So
yeah,
I didn't realize that it was actually going to become a form of currency that would be, federally insured depending on where you buy it from and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had friends who were buying into Bitcoin so they could buy things on the Silk Road. And
yeah,
I benefited from that, surely, but it was never something that I was like, yeah, this is the future. And now I'm like, shit, it's the future.
Yeah, I mean, it was mostly just I was just curious because I kept hearing about it, and same thing, like that was the context I was hearing about it about, and I'm like, no, like we should, if we're going to be writing about this, like I think an interesting take would be like, here's how our Bitcoin is doing. What was weird was I was getting paid so little at that shitty job, I couldn't afford to just do it myself.
Right.
Like, I could have been like, oh, I'll just spend $100 on Bitcoin. I'm like, I didn't have $100. I was making $20,000 a year and commuting into Manhattan every day.
Yeah, that's and so now I'm following everything because I was like I want to be on the next thing because I have $100 that I can throw into a dying short stock, and maybe make a little bit off of that, but I don't. I was reading like some of the Wall Street bet stuff that people were saying about the GameStop stock, and they're like, hey, I put in like 35K and now I'm up to like, I'm like, oh yeah, so you're not a normal person.
Right.
Everyone's like, yeah, normal people are making money off of it, and it's like, these aren't normal people. Maybe like a couple people like jumped in with $100 to $500 or whatever, and
Yeah,
they're gonna make.
I know a couple people who bought like a share of GameStop.
Right, but the people who are like making hundreds of thousands of dollars right now they're experienced traders who have a lot of money to just kind of throw at this, and they understand how it works, that they can, like, once people sell, they have it set, they have their like Robinhood set to automatically buy like any open shares and stuff like that. So it's they're still very savvy investors. It's just
right. Yeah, I have no idea really how any of it works.
Yeah, they're just not the Wall Street hedge funds that, like, they're essentially retail investors who wanted to stick it to Wall Street.
Yeah, anything that makes a billionaire go on MSNBC and essentially cry into the camera that nerds are being mean to him, I'm 100% behind. I was like,
he told me to get good. It hurt. It really hurt.
Yeah. I hope that guy dies in poverty.
Yep. That's I completely agree. Billionaires. I have radical views in the sense that would never actually work in this country. I don't think it would never happen anyway. But like, I think there should be a salary cap. I think no one should be able to make like more than $5 million a year. If you can't like survive and provide for like your future generations with $5 million a year,
I don't know what
are you doing with your life?
I agree. I don't know exactly what I would set that number at.
Right.
But like, you should. It's somebody come up to bring up the Zelda rupee wallet again. Like, in that game, you can only have 255 rupees. Like, it maxes out. That should also be true of real money. Like, if you have $100 million, you're done with money. Thank you.
Right.
For whatever you did to get it. Great job. You get $100 million. And get rid of some of it, and then you can have some more.
Yeah, put it back in. I mean, ideally, that would cause the people, these CEOs and everything, these billionaires of multinational corporations, to pay their employees more, improve the facilities that their employees work in, improve working conditions, everything like that. Maybe give back to society a little bit. It's just, we don't live in an ideal world. There would be a loophole that someone would find at some point that would allow them to, like, start a charity, start a nonprofit, and then they can just
people would figure
money
out a way around it. But like, I mean, I run a record label. I don't have any employees because I can't pay an employee enough to do the things that I don't want to do. Like, I could get some intern to do it for college credit, but I'm not a dick, so I'm not gonna. If I make enough, because the other thing is, like, I put out 1 or 2 albums a year, maybe. Like, it's mostly my own projects.
Right.
If it got to a point where, like, I could hire somebody, I would absolutely do it at a rate that would be worth their time, not just the least amount I could legally pay them.
Right. Yeah. I know nothing about running businesses. I ran one for a little while, but I have nothing. I have no, and that's what I'm running into with job search right now. Is like, I'm trying to go for management positions because that's what I was in, and people are like, "Wait, you're a 2-time college dropout, and you'll want to be a comedian? What do you know about running a business?" Like, I don't know. I led the last one
a lot.
So our first $1 million quarter. Maybe I know something.
Yeah. The last time I was looking for jobs, that comes up a lot in the interviews. Because I'm like, I can't hide that I am a comedian at this point. Like, if you're starting out and you're just doing open mics, I could see not wanting to bring that up in a job interview. But the fact that, like, I haven't had a job of, like, a regular people job for a couple of years, like, what have you been doing? I'm like, stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I've been touring.
on
I've been doing this.
television. Like, I'm not famous, but like I have a body of work. They're like, well, why would you? Are you just gonna do this until you get famous as a comedian and then quit? I'm like, I mean, yes.
But the whole thing
I will
is like,
probably not get famous, but if that
Right.
happens, yeah, I'm out the door that day. I don't know what else to tell you.
yeah. If fucking the Tonight Show calls, I'm I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm done.
Well, it's very hard to be like a famous, super wealthy comedian. It is only kind of hard to be a working comedian. Like,
Right.
there's tons of comedians you've never heard of who that is their living. Like they're out on the road most weekends. That's the other thing is like I have kids and I want to be home. So I like my college agent knows I'm like, I don't want to be gone for like more than 2 weeks at a time.
Right.
Or like if you have like tell me before you book me on like a month-long thing, like so that I can tell you not to do that. Like, you would work a lot more if I could just get you out on the road whenever. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I don't want to be gone from my like 2-year-old and 7-year-old for the next 3 months.
Priorities, man. Once they're old enough to feed themselves, then you can go.
That's
Then,
what I figured. Like they're a little older. I'm like, yeah, well then it's fine. Like when they can be latchkey kids.
Right. All right. Well, hey, I think we're close to an hour right now. So let's talk about your upcoming special, which you said you recorded at Dry Bar right before the pandemic hit, right?
Yeah. So Dry Bar Comedy, there's an app you can get on Android or iOS. You can watch them online. I think to watch them in a browser, you have to pay like $1 per special, but you can watch them all for free on the app. They have a theater in Provo, Utah, and they basically just bring a bunch of comics out. They film half-hour clean specials from people, and
It's Utah, yeah.
They release them kind of whenever. I don't know when it's coming out. They told me originally, or the day we recorded it, they're like, it'll be out sometime this year. Then there was a pandemic. We hadn't heard anything for a while. I recorded the same night as Mike Gaffney, who's another Jersey comic.
Okay.
So he and I would like check in with each other every couple of weeks. But like, you hear anything yet? Do you know? Do we know when these are getting released? They finally sent me a rough cut I guess like a month or so ago now. They're like, here's a rough cut. Tell us what you think, if there's anything you want us to change, and tell us what you want us to call it. And then we're going to release it in March. And then I wrote back, I watched the cut a couple times, told them a few like minor tweaks I would like them to make, told them to call it the favorite. And then they replied with like, oh, and we moved it to the end of January. I'm like, oh, great. So I started telling people the end of January, and then here we are in the end of January when we're recording this, and I hadn't had a date told to me yet. So I emailed them. I was like, do we know when it's coming out? Like, I would like to tell people. And they're like, we moved it to the second week of February. I was like, okay, do you know like what's the date? And they're like, it might change. So we're not going to tell you anything specific. So I don't know. Probably sometime in February it will be out on the Dry Bar app. If people follow me, I'm at Glenn Tickle on all the social medias that I use. So I'll certainly tell people when it's finally out. But.
Well, of course, yeah. It's just you're just gonna let it be released and then let the universe do its thing, right?
I mean, it's hard to promote a thing when they don't tell you when the thing's coming out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of weird that would be they've already recorded it and it's a digital platform. Like, why wouldn't you try to push that out when everybody is looking for digital content?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the pandemic had something to do with it, because you can edit stuff remotely, sure, but like, it's big files, and a lot of people. I mean, like I did my special. I hired 3 people to like shoot it for me, because I was going to be on stage and could not do it myself. But then like I edited it and did the sound mix and color correction and stuff myself, because I have a film degree, so I figured use it. But a lot more people worked on the Dry Bar special, so right, there's more coordination that needed to go into that one.
That makes sense. And I guess
the cut they sent me looked great. Like, I'm really happy with it. some of it is there's some of it that was on my first album, and a few of the jokes that were at the end of Good Grief are on it, because they weren't particular. Like, it can be stuff you've told other places. It just has to be clean. That's like our main priority. And even as a guy who works like mostly clean, because it means different things to different people.
Mhm.
They're very specific when they tell you exactly
no blue,
what they
nothing
mean.
blue at all, right?
Nothing.
Like, yeah.
And I was like, all right. I mean, I work clean. I'm not worried about it. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, well, some of it, I don't know if they're gonna like. I have a couple of jokes that are on paper clean. I'm not like swearing, but like it is kind of like implied.
It's like a Pixar joke.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Where like there's a joke about me naming my daughter Tess, and I did that one, but like I cleaned it up a little bit because I normally say, well, then her name would be Testicle. Like I say Testicle a couple of times in the joke normally, but on
Mhm.
that one, I'm like, I think I say it once.
You can get
There's
away with
another
that 'cause
one.
it's an anatomical.
Yeah.
correct-
Well, and
anatomically
I
correct
was
term.
I was also careful too when I'm wording it. I am saying the name Tess Tickle. I'm not saying the body part.
Right.
There were a couple like that where I asked them like over email, I'm like, do I have to run jokes by you before we do it? And they're like, no, just do, we trust you. I'm like, right. But you guys, if I do these jokes and they get cut and my special's 10 minutes long, like I want to know what to include. So I got there and we're doing hair and makeup because I'm very fancy. And the representative for the company was there. And I was like, can I just tell you these jokes that I'm worried about doing? Because we were doing 2 shows. The other thing was you're doing half-hour sets, and the specials were like that I watched were like 40 minutes. So I'm like, oh, I have to do 2 different 30 minutes so that they have enough to make that special. Like they didn't say that. It's just I watched a bunch of the specials that were on there, and they were all about 40 minutes. So it's like, all right, I'll do like the same opening and closing, and I'll mix up the middle. And like, oh yeah, no, we're just releasing shorter specials now. I was like, oh, okay. Would have been
Good to know.
cool to know.
Yeah.
So I ran the jokes by her, and she's like, no, those should be fine. And I'm like, again, should be? Could you just tell me yes or no, please? And she's like, well, do them in the first show and see how they go. It's generally like if the audience in the room reacts okay, it can stay in, unless it's like unless it's an obvious violation.
Right.
And so I did it the first set. They went fine. So, but I think they ended up using the first show more than the second one. The audience was more into it.
Yeah, it's weird how that works. A lot of people, every like big name comedian that I've gone to see, I typically go to the later show if there is a later show, because I don't know why I like the later show better, but a lot of times comedians are like, dude, the late show like always sucks. I hate the later show. Like the first show is always good. I'm like, I've never seen a bad later show, I don't know.
I forget what times the shows were, but it wasn't like one was super late or anything. It was just for whatever reason, because they tell you there's like a form you fill out essentially after the 2 shows, like do you think one was stronger, like what worked really well that you definitely want to keep, is there something you maybe want us to cut out?
Oh, that's cool.
Stuff
You
like
get
that.
you have some input into it, at least. It's not just like,
Yeah, and we all they do 3 comics a night. I forget the other guy's name. It was me, Mike Gaffney, and this other guy. And look, for all 3 of us, first show went great, second show was fine, but we're like, well, if you're releasing one of them, just release the first one.
makes sense. I gotta say, I have an admiration for that, to do a half hour of clean comedy. I was in a competition in Philly one time where I had to do 3 to 3.5 minutes clean, and I struggled with that. Like I didn't do any like dirty jokes or anything, but I was like, Tinder and Bumble weren't like huge yet. It was like popular with like still younger people basically. And I just replaced swear words with not swear words that mean the same thing. And like the material is still really depressing. I'm talking about how like I'm single and lonely and blah. I like no one. The audience really didn't react except to like one joke,
Right.
and it was really tough. I probably shouldn't even have entered that competition, but the guy
I've heard
reached.
that from a lot of people.
He
That
reached
they
out
think
to me
working.
specifically, so that's why I was like, "Oh yeah!"
Yeah.
I was a year in, maybe a year and a half into doing comedy, and someone was like, "Hey, we'd really love you to come down. We've heard a lot about you." Like, I'm sure
Yeah.
they didn't. Uh, I'm sure it was just
But it
like, "Oh
feels
yeah,
nice to hear.
yeah, this kid will do whatever. He's desperate for stage time."
Yeah. I've heard from a lot of people that I think working clean is harder. I think a little bit, but I mean, it depends on kind of who your influences are and what the stuff you're writing jokes about
Hmm.
are. Like, I've been married since I was 22 to a woman I met when we were 12 years old. Like, uh, I don't have like any cool dating stories really. Like, I've been trying to do a joke lately because I bring that up, and I was like, a lot of like my friends know I've been married for a long time and that I'm happy, so they'll ask me for like dating advice, and I tell them, change schools in 7th grade, find a girl reading a book you like, and be friends with her, and then eventually that's just your wife now. And I'm like, it's worked for me every time. I don't know.
That's good. I have the opposite because I've been single for so long that all my friends think I'm like really good at playing the field, but like I'm barely on the team.
Yeah.
Like I'm they're throwing the ball. I get in senior night. That's when I get on the field. The other team
It's a
blocks
Rudy
for me.
situation. They're like, we
Yeah.
just gotta let him have one.
Yeah. There's my friends are laughing in the stands going, "He's so little." That's a deep cut Rudy reference. That's
But it's also it's mostly, like I said, out of necessity. Like, when I started doing colleges, I was told like colleges only book you if you work clean, which actually isn't even really true. I think I get booked more because colleges know that I will work clean. And I've been doing the college circuit enough now where like I have a reputation among the people who book colleges as like, I'm not going to show up drunk. I'm not going to like hit on students. I'm just going to show up. Like, sure, I'll go to the cafeteria. I'll have dinner with your student activities people. We'll have a nice time. Then I'll do a show, and then I'm going to go back to my hotel room and watch Buckaroo Banzai and fall asleep. Like, that's
yeah. Well, and you're
it's
again, like I said earlier,
boring is what it is.
no, I mean I would love to be in that position. They my whole thing, like I said earlier, you're not an offensive comedian by any means. And a lot of times I think with a younger crowd, like at a college, like there's paradigms have shifted a little bit. There's very, as much as people complain about like political correctness and everything like that, like it is a real thing. The younger students, like that age range, they're very accepting and tolerant of people, and people, older comics will try to make people like uncomfortable. At least I've seen clips of people like directly like making eye contact with a student and like trying to make them uncomfortable. And there's a difference between that and saying something that might be a little uncomfortable on stage that you might be able to get away with. I think it's just like the people who complain about college circuit just don't approach it the right way.
Agreed. And I know like it's every couple of months, like a famous comedian will say that they don't want to do colleges anymore because the students are too PC. Like when Seinfeld said it, I'm like, when's the last time you did a college, bud? Like,
right. And they're
doing
the ones,
stadiums. Shut up. Like,
yeah.
Also,
you're overcharging.
19-year-olds have no idea who you are. Like, they don't
Right.
want to see you. Shut up.
Dude, I was gonna go see Seinfeld. He's not even a huge influence on me, but like I
love Seinfeld the TV show, but Seinfeld the person drives me crazy. Like, he's like comedians in cars getting coffee. It's just him being like rude to servers and showing off how much money he has, and it drives me up a wall.
I like his perspective on comedy more than I actually like his stand up. So like I you got to give the guy respect. He's a legend and everything like that. But yeah, I'm not. I mean, he was in Reading, I think, a couple years
Mhm.
ago, and tickets were like, oh no, it was Hershey Theater. Tickets were like $150 or something like that. I'm like, I
Yeah.
am not spending $150 to see Jerry Seinfeld when I paid 40 to see Dave Chappelle and Louis C.K. You know, like
Yeah.
who are, in
I
my
saw
opinion, two
him.
better comedians. And
Yeah, I
uh,
saw him live once. He was like the big headlining act at the Lucille Ball Comedy Festival the year I was up there. And because I was another performer, I got to go see the show. And he was doing bits like, you know, how episodes of Seinfeld would start with him doing stand up. He was doing jokes from those clips. And
well, that's because that's what he did. You know,
yeah,
he
I mean,
would keep a
I've heard
joke
him
in his
talk
act
about
for,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you brought up Louis. His whole thing was like, every year you need a new hour and then you throw that hour in the garbage. And I'm like, those are two extremes of
Right.
the idea, and they're both wrong. Like,
Yeah. Well, and I think like that, the Louis mentality kind of screws up a lot of younger or, you know, fresh comedians, green
yeah.
comedians, because they think, oh, I constantly have to be coming up with new material, and it's like they don't actually take the time to perfect anything. But
Mhm.
he does. Like you know, it's not just like, oh, I'm just going to spit out new material every chance I get. He actually,
Right.
you know,
I mean, and it's
he's a
different when
professional.
you're a professional comedian who's getting on stage for an hour every night. Like,
Yeah, that's
as
what.
opposed to an open micer who's doing maybe 2 or 3 shows a week. Like, you're not going to develop material as faster. But both those guys it's both based around you have to write a lot.
Mhm.
It's just, I feel like Seinfeld will lock a joke in and it'll work. Like he did the Pop Tarts bit when I saw him in Jamestown. I'm like, my guy, like what? And it's not like it was different. Like that's not. Then I can see it. Like
Yeah.
Jim Gaffigan, if you listen to his first couple albums, like there's overlap. There's a few jokes that he does on more than one album, but it's not word for word. Like he's
Mhm.
changed it. It's like gotten better. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Like there's jokes that I do. My whole first album, I thought I was like, all right, now that it's recorded, I won't have to do these jokes anymore. But that's when I started getting booked a lot at colleges, and a lot of the jokes that I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to do these anymore, were about me being a substitute teacher, which at that point I had not been for a few years, and
Right.
now it's been a decade or so, probably. I don't remember when I stopped, but I still do those jokes at colleges because they work well at colleges. Like they're old jokes, but also I know college students didn't hear that album. Like they're
Right.
not, that's
And
not why
they're
they're coming. They're coming because it's the thing to do on campus on a Wednesday night. It's like, do we want
yeah.
to stay in the dorm or do we want to go watch a comedy show with a guy with a dumb name? Like
Plus, they're
that's,
not that far removed from having substitute teachers in high school, so
yeah.
it's
Like
like
if I'm doing a
yeah.
show at like a club, I'm not going to do those jokes. Unless I do sometimes because like it'll be a fundraiser for a PTA or something. But yeah, like, and what I've noticed about performing at colleges is most of the students who come are first or second year because they can't drink yet. And
Yeah.
like once you hit 21, 22 and you're in college, like you have other options
Hmm.
for things to do on a Wednesday.
That's
So
I booked a show in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. My one
mhm.
of my longtime friends owns a bar there, and it's a pretty popular bar. Like they have DJs in, and I mean, after my comedy show, which was very poorly attended, they were packed wall to wall with people for the DJ afterwards. I
Yeah.
mean, like literally, you couldn't move.
Was there
They
any
had,
worse feeling than
no,
no one at the comedy show, but people lining up for the karaoke that happens after?
yeah. So the the karaoke, at least it was like a DJ. They have like a dance party. I mean,
Yeah.
they pack like 700 people into that little space. Not anymore, obviously, but yeah, that was really disappointing because it was also the first show that I produced, and I had Shane drive all the way up from Philly to Bloomsburg
Mhm.
to do that show, and I thought he was gonna snapped me in half. I thought he was gonna kill me. He was not happy with me at all. I ended up having to pay him out of pocket too because I didn't make enough on ticket sales to like.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it's a good friend of mine who runs the venue. So he was like, "We'll split it halfway. Like, what do you need? What did you say you're gonna pay them? And I'll split." Because I just assumed like,
That's nice of them.
yeah. Well, and now if I would try to do that show now, I might actually get some attendance because SNL made Shane famous. So
Right.
yeah. It was I don't want to produce shows anymore, to be honest.
I don't enjoy that aspect of it. It's a great, I always tell, like I teach intro to stand-up classes at Steel Stacks, and I always tell them, I'm like, the best way to get stage time is to produce your own shows. I mean, it's
but you don't follow your own advice.
Yeah. I mean, I do sometimes. It's just, I don't like it. Like, I don't like worrying about that aspect of it. It's especially like, I don't want to host an open mic ever again, but I still tell people who are starting out, find a bar near you that will let you do a weekly open mic, because when you host the open mic, like you do hopefully really feel like you have to write new jokes. You can't just do the same set every week. If you go to an open mic and that's what you do, that's one thing. Because I tell them, I'm like, you should work on a 5-minute set first. Like when you get that down, start adding and removing things. But when you're hosting, like people will stop coming if the host tells the same jokes every week. If the comedians tell the same jokes every week, it's one thing. But for the hosts to do it, I think immediately people will be like, oh, it's just word for word the same thing every time. Forget it.
Right.
Because then like the comedians who come change week to week. Like it's not always going to be the same people, or they might throw a new joke in. But if you're the host, you're the person that the audience sees the most. So
yeah,
write jokes. But I also I tell people to do that, but I never want to host an open mic again in my life.
I've only hosted a few, like guest hosted, and I'm not a good host. I don't have that
either.
I don't have the energy to get the room pumped.
Well, that's
up
the thing,
everything.
is it's a separate skill. It's a great way to get booked pretty early on, because you don't actually have to do that much time material wise.
Right, because a lot of it is also like announcements, like, hey, turn your cell phones off, like don't talk, like whatever.
Right, like you're on stage for 15 minutes before you bring up the feature act, but 5 of that is like, hey, happy birthday, Doug,
any birthdays,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I hate doing it. Like I can, and I do it if I'm paid, but like I'm not a high energy guy, and that's really what you want in a host, is like somebody who's really going to bring the room up.
I don't know, man.
Fake it for more than a couple of minutes.
They seem to love your brother, according to your jokes.
Yeah.
Which he did exactly what you told him to do, so you can't really be mad at him.
I found the video of him doing that like a couple weeks ago, and I put it up on TikTok. And
I wanted to talk to you about TikTok too.
He's a sensation on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, I started using TikTok 2 months ago, I think. And at first I was just a friend of mine, I forget who, Che Guerrero maybe, was like posting the stuff he was posting on TikTok on his Instagram. And I'm like, easiest thing you can do to support comedy friends is just like follow them on social media.
Absolutely.
And like their stuff. Like, so that I will, any comedian friend I have, I'm like, if you're on a thing, I'll follow you on the thing. I'll like your posts when I see them. Like, it's just so easy. It takes no time, and it genuinely helps.
Yeah. That's why I'm on there, because, one of my best friends, he's a really talented musician. So he's been doing like music stuff, just uploading little clips of jams that he's working on or whatever. And so I'll support him there. And his older brother is one of those guys that's like, the next internet fad is like the future. And that's, he was trying to make money on YouTube before YouTube was huge. He was trying to make, he's like, you can make money on TikTok, guys, get on TikTok.
He's not wrong.
No, he's not at all. But I don't know what what my issue is. I've had a couple videos hit like over 1,500 views, but you've
Yeah.
done pretty well on there for yourself.
I have a joke about potty training my toddler that is currently at 2.5 million views. I have my phone open right now. I'm looking at it. The video I posted 2 days ago, we got a pet rabbit the other day.
Okay.
So I did a joke video introducing the rabbit that will probably cross 1 million views today. Those are the two biggest ones I have. I have stand-up clips that have like a couple 100,000.
And that's what I was doing. I did a series that was based on a joke that I put on Instagram a couple years ago, where I was on a show at the Lizard Lounge. Shout out Alan Massenberg for producing that and giving me some stage time. Who he's also on TikTok now, and he already had an online following. So he's
to look him up.
Yeah. But
I think I found you. I think I remember seeing your name.
Yeah, because I think I followed again.
TikTok.
Anytime I see anybody who I know, and
it's gonna sound like the weirdest brag, but it's people will follow me on TikTok and I won't see it because I have so many. I get so many notifications on there. Like it's useless. Like Twitter, you can set where like you only get certain notifications, and I use Twitter all the time, but like I don't get a ton of response on there. But every time I look at TikTok on my phone now, I've got like 100 notifications. I'm not going to read these.
Yeah. So yeah, I was
like my mother-in-law signed up for it because she wanted to be supportive.
Nice.
So she followed me, and then in like the minute between her telling me that and me opening my phone, I had to dig through like 50 new followers to find my mother-in-law's screen name. But I think I'll find you on there if I didn't already. But I think
it's not a huge deal. I thought the series I was doing was pretty fun, and TikTok is a really powerful video editing app. You can do some really fun stuff there.
It's I edit like the stand-up clips that I've been posting. The ones that do well, weirdly, are from my first album. But what's great is it counts as a stream every time somebody watches it on TikTok. So like you get paid. I mean, it's literally almost nothing per view.
Right. It's like
on
Spotify.
Spotify, it's like literally 1/100th of a penny, maybe, if somebody listens to your track. But I've got a couple million views now on there. It's actually more people have streamed stuff on TikTok from that album than in the entirety of its existence. Like from the minute it came out to TikTok, like it's gotten like a good amount of streams. Like I'm really happy with how it did. I had no complaints before. It's just I hit that I forget, it was like 1.5 million streams across everything before TikTok, and then now it's like the stand-up clips combined, it's like 2 million views.
That's awesome, man.
Which is ridiculous to me. But it's another thing where like I do a lot of colleges, and then I hear my agent, it was never an issue, or he probably wouldn't assign to me, but like other college agents, they're like, hey, when you go, like, you can't do jokes about being married, you can't do jokes about having kids, like college students aren't going to relate to it. I'm like, they are, because they are aware of like general family dynamics. They know kids exist in the world. Also, my jokes are funny, so shut up.
Yeah.
Like it's in practice, it's never been an issue. It's not like I do jokes about kids where it's like, oh, you need to have kids to understand. Like there's a lot of parent comedians who do like parent jokes that like other parents will enjoy, but I don't know, I'm sure I have a few of those too, but like the ones I'm doing at colleges aren't like, oh, so you guys know how when you're changing diapers, it's they might have changed the diaper maybe, but I'm not banking on that. Like,
you
a lot of the jokes are about me being afraid of my children more than anything.
Yeah, you do more jokes about things that happen with your children rather than like the aspects of parenting. It's more so.
Somebody asked me in another interview, they're like, how do you write jokes? I'm like, honestly, I just wait for my kids to do something and then I tell people about it. Like that's my whole approach anymore.
It might have been like a Facebook memory or something that I saw recently, but I've made the statement before that children are to comedy what steroids were to baseball. You know, like it's just it's a cheat code.
Oh, no question. Yeah. Because the jokes that I was writing before my daughter was born, like, were fine. Like I was doing okay. But then when I started writing jokes about my kid, like those jokes just worked better. And I was starting to get like more work because of it. Like it really, I would never tell anybody to, as a career move, have a child. But I think more than the specific thing of having a kid, like it gave me a thing to write jokes about. Like it gave me a point of view, as opposed to before that, it was me just staring at a blank sheet of paper trying to think of something funny. Like,
Yeah.
Now it's, I have
double the fun.
Yeah. Now, yeah. Oh God. Now there's two of them. It's so many.
The most kids ever, right?
Yeah, I did that joke on the Dry Bar special, and they kept in a part where a guy calls out. He's like, "You're in Utah." Like, yeah.
Nice. Oh,
Because that
heckles
joke
are always
doesn't
great.
work. Yeah, that joke doesn't work normally, where I act like having two kids is the most. But if you do it in a room full of Mormons, it really doesn't work. But I knew it. Like I did it. That's why I did it there. Like
Yeah. No, and you have such a dry delivery with it. I don't want to talk to, because I want people to go watch your stuff, pump up your numbers a little bit. So I don't want to keep hammering home your jokes. But
no,
you have a very dry delivery with a lot of your jokes. So sometimes what you're saying is really funny, but it's just the delivery comes off so like nonchalant, kind of, that people are like, "Oh wait, that was a joke," right?
Yeah,
Oh, I hear.
I like when. Oh yeah, my child is up from her nap. I like jokes like that, where like Todd Barry is one of my favorite comedians to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Where to me the things that are funniest are if you can say it completely monotone, the joke should work.
Yep.
I know a lot of people complain about Dane Cook for various reasons. To me, like a lot of his material has always been very funny. It's just he's so high energy on stage, it just makes me physically uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I hate
on his first comedy
like
special, I think it's his Comedy Central half hour, he like literally does the worm. I'm like,
with
oh,
the black tank top
special.
Which I loved when I was 15,
I remember in
16
college,
years old.
like all my friends were watching. I'm like, these jokes are hilarious, but like, God, calm down, God, you're making me nervous just watching you.
Yeah.
As opposed to guys like Mitch Hedberg or Todd Barry, where it's like, just say the thing. Like that's more my speed.
Yeah, those are two guys that have definitely. Mitch for sure is on my Mount Rushmore of comedy. Todd Barry is right there.
Mitch was, when I started writing jokes, who I was listening to a lot, and I started trying to write jokes like Mitch Hedberg, but you have to write so many. Like
I can never
Mitch
do
Hedberg
it.
album's like 200 jokes. It's I
can't write in that short, him, Stephen Wright, guys like that. Like they write these just really short. It's a lot of it is like puns, and I'm usually really good at puns.
Yeah. I love them, but I'm not good at thinking of them. But guys, it's like Mitch Hedberg, Dimitri Martin, and Stephen Wright, like are three of my favorite comedians. But I couldn't do it because I just can't write that many. Or I could probably write them. It's just remembering 200 jokes to tell on stage,
which is even more impressive
never be able to do it.
When you think of Mitch Hedberg, because he was always so under the influence of something. That he could even, and he doesn't.
That's why like all my stuff is longer stories, because I can remember. Like
it gives you room to work too. I mix in a little bit of storytelling kind of style with like a conversational tone, because
it's easier for me to remember, and like because I base things off true events, so I don't need to like worry. I'll forget a joke. I'm not going to forget the time my daughter kept telling me the order everyone in my family's going to die, like that, because that happened a lot. I will remember that forever. So like I might forget that I wanted to talk about that and like just not do that bit. But like if I'm in the bit, I'm not like, oh God, what happens next? I'm like, no, I just remember when it happened, and then I might rework details to make it funnier, which back to TikTok for a second, is not a thing people understand. Oh my God. People on TikTok assuming like it's like they have no concept that comedy exists in the world sometimes.
Right.
Like I do a bit on my first album about how one time I got like I was temporarily banned from Facebook for making a threat. And the threat I made was that I said if it was over 100 degrees one day I was going to blow up the sun. And the number of people who are like, well, if you blew up the sun, it would only get hotter. I'm like, well, right, but I did it out of frustration because I don't like it when it's hot. And then people jumping on to be like, oh, well, Facebook's controlled by lizard people. I'm like, guys, it is a joke. It is a joke about a thing that happened. Like, I really got banned from Facebook for saying I was going to blow up the sun. But it's funny because it's so obviously I'm not going to do that for real.
Right.
But man, and I put that video of me introducing my rabbit sparked, I think I've got like 2,000 comments on that video, and most of them are people giving me unsolicited advice
On how
about
to
caring for rabbits. They're like, you have to get a second rabbit. Let me see its cage. Is it big enough? What are you feeding it? I'm like, shut up. I don't answer to strangers on the internet.
That's kind of why I don't want, like, I would like the feeling of being recognized and like, oh, the thing you're doing is kind of creative and funny, but I also don't like people. So it's like,
yeah, it's wild because like I have more followers on there than any other platform. Like the things that I put on TikTok are the things that most people have seen. Like the potty training video is itself, it's a 13-second video of a joke about me using a sticker chart to track every time my toddler, but also me, uses the potty.
and you're beating the shit out of it, right? That's
that's the, like, that will be my legacy at this point. And I'm like, I mean, fine, it's a joke, like I'm proud of it, but also, man, it's like people on there, I forget some of the comments that drove me crazy on that one because it's been all rabbit content on my notifications for 2 days.
Nice.
But yeah, people are like, oh, you shouldn't be competitive with your child. I'm like, guys, it's a joke. People are like, you should, because I showed the sticker chart of my dog. I'll just explain it. So I'm like, oh, we're potty training my kid. Every time she uses the potty, she puts a sticker on her chart. Then I pan up and there's a bigger chart with a bunch more stickers that says daddy's potty chart. I'm like, I'm crushing her in the numbers.
Yeah.
And then I say, but these are all from this weekend, so I should probably see somebody. And like more than a dozen people have been like, yeah, that's too, like, you need to go to a urologist immediately, and not like tagging. They're not like tagging a bit. Like they're genuine concern for my health. I was like, guys, it's a joke. I put a bunch of stickers on a piece of paper right before I made that video because I thought it would be funny. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, that's something I'm kind of worried about with the series that I did on TikTok. If it would ever like actually be noticed by anybody, it's very, like, to go back to like Todd Barry, it's very in his kind of style of comedy where it's like, I'm a celebrity.
His TikToks are great, by the way.
I follow him. He's one of the only, I don't follow a lot of people on there. It's really,
I
like,
follow a lot of people, but weirdly not a lot of like Twitter. I'll follow a bunch of comedians that I like. TikTok, it's mostly like chefs and people who make coffee.
That's my Instagram. That's
when I first started using it. Like, I wasn't posting anything for a while. I was just like liking my friends' stuff. And then I saw like, there's this chef who makes a lot of potato dishes. So I follow her. And there's like a guy who explains all the different ways to brew coffee. And I'm like, perfect. Like, that's all I need out of this. And then I started thinking, I'm like, oh, like I have videos of stand-up. I can throw some clips up there.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what I was there to boost my friends' numbers with his music stuff. And then I was like, yeah, I started playing around with like the editing and everything. I was like, actually, this could be kind of fun. So I started doing a comedy masterclass, basically taking clips from open mics and different shows that I was on, a lot of Philly's Funniest Clips, because that's really the only good tapes that I get. And just basically pointing out all the things that I did wrong and saying like you know, I am the greatest comedian ever, but even I make mistakes, and this is how you be a good comedian, you know.
I should
stutter here
clips
and
of myself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely look at the floor the whole time.
Yeah, make sure that people feel very comfortable talking throughout your entire set.
Yeah,
that's the only way you know you're good.
I was talking to somebody, I was doing, because you can go live on TikTok, and I'll get like questions about comedy from people. And a lot of people have brought up Steve Hofstetter to me when I do TikToks live. And
it's so frustrating that he's the guy that people know, because
well,
doesn't
I'm
he
like,
like
no,
plant
it's-
people? Isn't
he
that like a
doesn't plant
rumor?
people.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's a rumor, but I don't believe it. But it's the way he does comedy. He like opens it up to, like, he asks a lot of questions of the audience, which makes them think, oh, well, we can talk too. And then he waits for one of them to talk, and then he makes that the bit. I'm like, it's just the style of doing comedy. It's not right or wrong. It's just people ask like if I get heckled a lot. I'm like, I don't, and it's not because I'm great. It's because I don't address the audience directly. That's the easiest way to not get heckled. It's like, don't do bar shows. Like at bar shows, anything, they're gonna heckle you.
I get heckled all the time.
But if you're like, hey, what's everybody drinking tonight? Like, oh, what do you do for, like, then they'll think they can talk. If you don't do that and just talk at them, they will quiet and listen.
Part of, I think, because I try to be so like conversational on stage, I don't necessarily like address the audience, but like I was just kind of running through jokes with a friend of mine who was in town, like visiting. Where we were just hanging out. She's like, oh, like, tell me some jokes, which, you know, always ask a comedian to do that. Always do that. Always ask them to tell a joke when they're not on stage, because they're always prepared for it. Yeah, but I would go through some of my bits, and she's like, you know, like, I know you're like telling jokes right now, and I shouldn't do this, but like I really want to talk to you because it just feels like we're having a conversation. I'm like, I guess that's a good thing in a way, but it also like it lets people feel comfortable when I tell one of my favorite jokes and they don't like it to shout out, find another metaphor. And I'm like, ouch.
That is such a specific heckle.
Yeah,
front row, cut deep.
Front row, beautiful blonde woman too. Just like completely out of my league. Just heckle me with a very like that cut deep, you know. Because I love baseball.
Because that heckle's got insight.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Well, I think she was there with another comedian to be.
I say it hurts most when they're right.
Yeah, but she's not. She is not right. That is a good joke.
Okay.
It's a good
I don't know
joke.
the joke. I didn't mean to. You.
I've been, because it never gets a good reaction.
Yeah,
because it's a very specific baseball joke.
Okay.
So I basically say like hooking up with someone on the first date, like getting laid on the first date, is like hitting a grand slam with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning when you're down 5 runs. Yeah, it's like, so that's like the premise of the joke, and I think a lot of people don't think like that. They're like, no, that's you won the game when you do that. But yeah, I'm
that good in baseball? I don't know.
Not when you're down. You only score 4 runs on a grand slam. You're down 5 runs. Okay. You lose all that momentum. There's nothing to build to. I do
that, but with Star Wars jokes, man. Like it's where, because I do a lot of jokes specifically about Star Wars because I love it. But like all the tags get like more specific, where at a certain point I can tell, all right, don't do the next one because they're not gonna get it.
I just power right on through. I am never.
It depends what kind of mood I'm in. One time a lady did heckle me. She's like, I've never seen Star Wars. Stop talking about it. And I'm like, I mean, I wasn't planning on it, but honestly, the whole rest of my set will now be jokes about Dagobah. So fucking leave now.
Oh man. All right, man. This is great.
Thanks for having me.
We can go ahead and wrap it on up here. My guest has been Glenn Tickle. Plug anything you want to plug, man. You know, your socials.
Drive Our Special will be out soon. I don't have more details than that. But you can just find me at Glenn Tickle on TikTok or anywhere else. You can look at my new rabbit Snowball. She's adorable.
Awesome. I will share a link to your first album and Good Grief, the link on Amazon in the description of this video, the comments, wherever you find links, it'll be there.
All the things that I've put out, you can get at circustrapeze.com. They're all set to pay what you want. So you can get them for free or you can pay for them. It's up to you.
Awesome. And if you want to follow me on social medias, I'm at Whiskey Hambone everywhere. Or
such a good username. I don't know if I've ever told you that.
Is it really? Whiskey Hambone is just sort of a persona that I have when I drink whiskey. It's
Oh, okay.
I just become a really fun-loving, happy guy that everybody tends to enjoy being around.
It's just the words go. It's like cellar door, man. They just go well together.
Awesome. That's good to know, because I always thought, I wasn't sure if it was cool or fun, or if people were just like, what is this guy trying to do? It was just something that no one had used yet, is essentially how I came about it. So yeah, I'm Whiskey Hambone, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can learn how to be a good comedian from me, the best in the industry.
I'm gonna make sure that I'm following on there. I'm gonna get those good tips.
Yeah. The podcast is at _pod on Instagram. That's really the only place I'm active. It has a Facebook page. You can follow me there. Buy a bidet.
You should. They're great.
The bidets are awesome, and I'm so happy I'm a bidet person now, because I can brag
Save
to
toilet
people.
paper, wash your butt. They're great.
Yeah. So thank you for tuning in, listener. This has been Human Interaction. I'm your host, Andrew Hambone Hambleton. Oh, I had it right the first time. I can't get this down. That is my guest, Glenn Tickle.
Where you point.
Yeah, check out all of his stuff online, and come back for the next one. Bye.
Bye, friends.